Hi guys, welcome to our podcast Future Evolutions. I'm Oxana, entrepreneur, investor and MBA student in Imperial College.
And I'm Vikas, a tech enthusiast, entrepreneur and Oxana's MBA classmate at Imperial College London.
This podcast is about all the disruptions humanity is facing in the nearest and further future. And today we will speak about future evolution in energy.
Today on our podcast, we have Nadal, who is a serial entrepreneur, a physicist, and he has a well-established fintech company called AppTap. And now he's trying to disrupt the energy space with his own brand new company called Zeal.
We are going to cover the topic of energy, talking about the past, present and future. It's a very interesting topic to talk about, and we are going to have a very fruitful conversation. If we look back in the days, technology progress has been moving faster and faster. 100 years ago, there was a coal mining. Then it got replaced by oil and gas. Countries who found these sources became incredibly rich. What's happening now? Now, oil and gas is going to be replaced by renewable energy. So, Nadal, tell us please, what is your plan in energy? So, how do you see energy will change in the nearest future?
Great question, first of all. I think there's a lot of tremendous opportunity in the energy space. So my background is in theoretical physics, so I see a huge opportunity to use a lot of the science and business opportunities to change the way we look at energy and also incorporate it in everyday life. As you probably know, AI is dominating the world as well, and I feel like for businesses and the consumers, there's a huge opportunity to join the two together, both the AI and the sources of clean energy, now going to help us to have this prosperity and abundance. How we get there is obviously a big question, but the solutions are already existing. So from my point of view, I've spent a lot of time in academia first, doing masters in theoretical physics at Imperial. But the last 6 years I've spent in fintech industry. I've understood how the banking world works, working with big banks like Barclays and Lloyds. But in the last 2 years, I realized that there's tremendous opportunity in clean energy space. Luckily, I came across this organization called RethinkX, which opened my eyes to possibilities of solar, wind, and battery superabundance. And now I'm on my second venture, on my entrepreneurship journey, on a company called Zeal, and this is what I'm trying to empower the future prosumers. So the concept of a prosumer is essentially a consumer or a business who can produce their own energy using solar power, store it for battery usage, and then be able to potentially sell it to other consumers or prosumers or businesses with ease. And this is what we're trying to do partly at Zeal.
I mean, Nadal, I think it's great, and I think you are really innovative. Your approach sounds interesting, if I can say so. But, just for the normal audience, and especially for me, will this innovations in renewable energy can decrease my energy bill? Because I think here in the UK, that something is a big problem, especially after you see Russia-Ukraine war, right? After that, it just become immensely difficult to have lower bills. So what do you think about that?
I think you're making a good point about everyday consumer, whether you're in the UK, Europe, US, or anywhere around the world, they're facing the same challenge. The cost of electricity, unfortunately, in terms of their bills, are increasing every single year. Although paradoxically, the production of energy is decreasing. It's becoming cheaper and cheaper to make the energy, but for some reason, consumers are paying more for their energy bills. So that's the paradox, right? How do we reduce that electricity bill for the consumers is a big question mark. But the problem is not actually is in the energy productions. It's just the way we're optimizing it and how we're distributing it. Historically, what happened for many, many years is we had a system or grid system where a lot of energy was produced by a single source, single dominant source, which was gas or oil or coal. And then we had transmission lines that would power the country or city by giving the electricity all the way to your homes. You are partly, for your electricity bill, is actually paying for the transmission cost without even knowing for it.
Right.
So in order for you to reduce that, you need to be able to be partly off the grid. So the local energy productions, it's called decentralized energy, is what will enable you to do that. So you can become a prosumer of energy and essentially have an ability to create your own energy without having to kind of source that from the grid. Your grid can become almost a backup system, and the renewable sources will become your dominant source of energy. That way you can reduce your electricity cost tremendously. In the next sort of 10 years, that cost reduction can be up to sort of 70 to 80%.
Wow, that's amazing.
So basically everyone will be able to produce and trade energy.
That's right. The way we see it at Zeal, and the way the future sees, every electrical device that consumes your fundamental electrons is an energy asset. So your energy asset, whether it's your electric vehicle, solar panels, batteries, or big data centers, is an asset that can either consume energy, produce energy, or store energy. So the production, storage, and as you mentioned, trading is going to be a new thing. So you'll have an asset ownership of your own energy, and in the future you'll be able to send it to your friend, sending money to a bank transfer.
So talking about data centers, you mentioned before AI implementation. So how do you see AI implementation in energy?
Well, just to give a simple example, everyone's at this point is familiar with ChatGPT, right?
Right.
Of course.
Everyone's using it.
We can't live without
Can't live
ChatGPT.
without it, especially you guys
Yeah.
studying at Imperial, doing your amazing MBA courses. It's a huge advantage, and it's a huge disadvantage if you're not using it. Just to give you an example, if you do an average search for whatever information you want to do on Google versus ChatGPT, if you type the same thing and press search, ChatGPT requires 3 times more energy consumptions for the same information or for the same kind of thing that you request.
Is it because of machine learning processes and so on?
Correct.
Yeah.
So the data centers right now are trying to optimize the research that they're doing, the search that they're doing versus sort of the optimal need for energy for those ChatGPTs. Meaning in the future and what's happening right now, and you're seeing that trend with the biggest companies around the world, the Amazon, the Microsoft, the Google, they realize that data centers are going to consume tremendous amount of energy. Those ChatGPTs and versions of these AIs are going to consume tremendous amount of energy. So they need to figure out how they're going to power that. And what they have with the grid is just not enough.
Right. Yeah, I mean, AI is everywhere. You know, you mentioned ChatGPT and the algorithms that require so much energy, but also there's this part of cooling,
yes.
right? Because all these data centers, they have this problem of heating. But what do you think about the current trends, and especially in UK, how this AI revolution and, you know, kind of in energy space is panning out? And do you think anytime soon we will get to a stage where people are the prosumers? They are the actual producers of the energy.
It's actually happening right now. It's just right now it's at small scale. Just to give an example, I recently attended a conference in London where they talked about 2 topics. One, green data centers, how the data centers going to become green, sustainable, self-powering. And the other part of it was, okay, if we have the problem of the heat that you mentioned right now, they have tremendous amount of heat that is being wasted.
Right.
And there is right now a solution where they can actually take that heat and use it for agriculture. Agriculture can use that to grow crops. So the data centers can actually help in many, many ways to grow free food or cheap food.
Yeah, that's amazing. Actually, I remember this one famous line from, you know, back in schools where we used to say that you can't destroy energy, you can only convert. And I think it's probably one of the law of energy as well. But I think I'm, the future sounds amazing and it's promising that, we have all these solutions to look forward to. But just going back in history, what do you think how the energy revolution shaped the current world that we see?
Yeah, also we were so worried that the resources at one point come to the end and then we will run out of the resources, right? So, and now we are heading to the point when resources, they will be endless and then we can use them as much time as we can. Tell us more about solar power.
Yeah. If you look back, depending on how far you want to go back in the history, right? So thousands and thousands of years, we had this way of living for humanity is survival, right? All you had to do is to be able to survive, have enough food, shelter, to be able to give it to yourself and your family and protect yourself well, sort of wild animals.
Right.
Sort of in the early 1800s, 1900s, we got to a point where we became extraction species. We figured out that there's things like coal, there's oil, there's gas. We can extract that energy, and those resources at that time seemed abundant. But very quickly we realized that those sources of energy are not abundant, they're scarce. At a certain point we will run out of them, and the predictions always changes, they keep on changing the goalposts, 20 years, 100 years, 50 years, depending on the economical point of view. And unfortunately the humans are built in such a way that we fight for scarcity. That's where a lot of wars happen, that's why the geopolitical fragmentations are happening. That's why we're
inequality.
Right now, exactly. Inequality is one of the biggest one right now. Half of the world don't have access to clean water or clean energy, and we shouldn't really be here in 2024. We have ChatGPTs, we are on the verge of having flying cars and flying to Mars, but yet half of the population don't have access to that clean electricity. How is that so? Right. So if you look now, the next stage of evolution of humans, we are right now on the brink of either the collapse or the brink of this new almost evolution of the humanity. And the new evolution of humanity is based on creation. Creation of the sources of energy, creation of local energy productions, creation of local food and local even health. So all of those things should be able to empower the consumers and turn them into what you kind of alluded to, the prosumers of the future. Right. And we have the next 5 to 10 years to transition to that as quick as possible. And after that, we will enter the era of abundance, prosperity.
That's very interesting. And once we get to a stage of abundance, I think at least with respect to energy, a lot of these inequality and the political tensions will get resolved. Mm-hmm. That earlier it was extraction with finite resources as oil. I mean, that has transformed deserts into empires. I think if you see the economies like Saudi Arabia and other Middle East countries, right, they are very scared and they want to sort of create a different model of their economy. So they can be self-reliant and not just rely on oil for the money. But what do you think would be the next phase of these economies, such as who are reliant on oil now?
The way I look at it, those are smart people. They know what's happening. Hence, they are embracing the change. And whoever doesn't embrace the change, the history shows that if you don't evolve, you'll get left behind, and then you become obsolete. Right. So if you want to be part of the future, you will have to embrace those sources. You'll have to embrace the new sources of energy that are going to be abundant. They're not endless, right, but they're abundant. Just to give you an example, the sun, right? A simple example of the sun. Sun can give us in 1 hour enough energy to power the whole planet for the whole year.
Oh, really?
Wow.
1 hour of energy captured in the right way can give enough energy to supply us the abundance of energy for the whole planet to be able to do anything and everything that we wanted.
So we should stop extracting in this.
Partly the conversion rate is quite not there. Obviously, there's certain limitations. Right. You mentioned at the beginning, energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be converted. So the conversion rates of those sources of energy from solar right now are getting better, but they still have a limitation. Right. For example, silicon. Silicon solar panels have an average ability to convert about 20% of the solar power. Right. There's a new type of technology being developed right now called perovskite solar cells. Right. It's essentially a mechanism, or a chemical mechanism, where you can have a simple way of generating solar panels that are going to be thin as your hair. It can take any shape, and the conversion rate is going to be even higher.
I also heard of some sprays which you just spray and then the solar cell will be created from this spray.
Right. And I think very soon you will be seeing that. The beauty of that technology, because of the spray or the coating mechanism, it can take any shapes. So in the future, you'll be able to see your suits and your beautiful dresses and bags.
Some solar panels.
Yeah, it's going to be embedded in your solar panels.
I can charge my phone from my back.
Yes, for sure.
Not bad.
That is definitely not bad. I mean, that's one hell of innovation. But, just thinking about the energy and the innovation that you're talking about, right? How realistic is it? Because we see, solar panel, wind energy, they are now in the market and in general awareness for a long time. But still, there is not that huge leap in when it comes to adoption. So what do you feel, when can we really transition to complete solar, wind or any other form of renewable energy and move away from the traditional form of energy like we have oil? What is that stopping us or slowing us down?
Okay, great question. Let's break it down into 3 different topics because it's a very complex question with complicated solutions, but solutions, once again, they exist. It's not like we don't have the technology. It's not like we don't have the solutions.
Right.
So on one part, you have the technology itself. So the simplest form of us transitioning to that is using something like solar, wind, and battery. An organization called RethinkX have done an amazing research where they figured out how pretty much every corner of our planet, every country, every city can be powered with that. And the beauty of that, solar is abundant everywhere, wind is abundant pretty much everywhere, as long as you have the storage to make sure that the intermittent energy can be stored and consumed whenever needed, we can tackle that. So that's the technology side. The beauty of the technology side is what they call gravity cost curves. What does that mean? The gravity does not care about our opinion on anything. The cost curves works in such way that the cost of electricity or cost of production of electricity for solar, wind, and battery are getting cheaper and cheaper every year, and it's going to become sort of 70 to 80% cheaper in the next decade.
So it's like Wi-Fi. Basically, we don't pay anything for internet at the moment, but back in the days, we used to pay huge amount of money, and we also had some credits which we had to buy and top it up to keep internet working. But nowadays, what we see, so same will happen with solar energy, right?
Yes, I think you're spot on. I think it's a really great analogy. It's like the early days of the internet right now, where a lot of the people didn't understand what the internet is. A lot of people had to put the routers in, and it sounded really weird. And
with the phone.
With the phone, people wasn't sure if they wanted their house.
That was weird.
And if you think about it, the first people who were able to afford the internet was the businesses, the IBMs of the world, the Googles of the world, who are just incorporating. And the same thing is happening right now. Businesses, the big businesses, are the ones who are making the most money out of it and investing the biggest amount of funding into this as well. If you look at the biggest investors in clean energy space right now, it's the technology companies. Amazon, Google, Apple, Microsoft, they all are the biggest investors in this clean energy space. So this is the technology part. The second part is the political part. Without certain rules and regulations, it's very hard to adopt anything new. But luckily, EU, UK, US, and a lot of other countries are adopting new type of legislations, schemes, to enable more of these technologies to be in the hands of average consumer. Just to give you an example, there's this new legislation right now in the UK called P415. I know it's not the sexiest name in the world, but what it essentially means now, you as a consumer can benefit from energy flexibility. Energy flexibility means you don't consume energy when the peak demand is there, which tends to be between sort of 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. on a Thursday or Friday. And by charging your electric vehicle or doing something else with that energy and giving the grid ability to use that energy, they actually pay you money. So the monetary exchange is now happening. You can actually make money out of those energy flexibility. On top of that, soon you will be able to trade energy. It's not going to happen overnight, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen in the next 5 years.
So if I don't have any solar panels or I don't have electric vehicle, how can I trade the energy? Can you tell us more? How do you see the future of energy trading? So how can I be consumer and at the same time prosumer?
We need to take you onto that journey. We do need to kind of give you the knowledge and the tools and maybe even financial abilities. So right now, the beauty of this technology, a lot of the banks are willing to pay for that and give you a huge tax rebates or amazing offers to pay for that technology to install it in your house in the first place. Obviously, they will make a lot of money in the next 20 years out of that, but you do need to transition from becoming consumer to prosumer. Eventually, you don't even have to potentially get energy from your energy supply. You could potentially buy it from Vikas. Vikas can sell you energy at a certain price. If he feels generous, he can donate it to you.
You know, as a birthday gift, please send me some energy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is amazing, so it's just like, energy is your new asset. Wherever you have that in excess, you can just, cash on it.
Right. I mean, you see what's happening with Bitcoin, right?
Right.
Blockchain enables a lot of different solutions, but Bitcoin is a very good example how they disrupted the finance industry.
Right.
And I wish I never sold my Bitcoin back in the days. I wish.
You still have time to go back in there. Well, if you missed on that wave, the next big thing is this clean energy space. I mean, great example on the flip side is the AI space. Look at the NVIDIA.
Right.
2 years ago, maybe 12 months ago, pretty much nobody heard about NVIDIA. Right. But they did something very quietly behind the scenes and they just knew this is inevitable. I'm telling you right now, with my prediction and with a bit of knowledge from the likes of RethinkX and some other people that I spoke to, what is going to happen, it's inevitable. One way or another, we will reach this future. And the future of abundance of energy and to be able to trade energy as an asset, it is going to happen. It's just a question of when, how quickly, and who is going to be the dominant sort of the next Googles and Ubers of this world when it comes to that.
So do you think that people will be able to invest their funds in the energy, same like electric station, for example? Every day in the evening, in the peak hours, I start trading. Like I just sell all my energy. I mean, it's like kind of risky investment, but I just do because I can get, for example, like 3% in a couple of hours on top. And then I can maybe I can transfer it back into the currency, in the money, or in Bitcoin, in the same. What do you think? Is it possible in the future?
Absolutely. I think it's a really interesting use case. Just like in stock market, there's...
Yeah, you just invest like a couple of million pounds, you just invest in the energy, and then you just sell it like in the peak hours.
To be honest, it's happening already, but it's businesses who are doing that right now, and big companies who can afford, tens and hundreds of millions. They're already doing that, and they're making a lot of money out of this. There's two ways of doing it. One, you can automate that. So we're actually trying to help with Zeal to do a bit of that as well. You can automate with the risk factor of a customer, how much they're willing to kind of buy and sell, how much they want to return. But there's going to be some active players who are just going to sit there and be able to trade every 30 minutes and make a ton of money with a lot of risk, but they can make ton of money, ton of energy.
Yeah, like Wall Street guys.
Exactly. It's going to be the Wall Street of energy very soon.
Right. That's amazing. But you kind of also touched upon storage, right? When we're talking about the limitations, right? That's a problem right now. So can you elaborate more on what sort of battery storage we have and what are the main limitations there, and how can we optimize the storage? How can we expand it? And what is the future look like for the battery storage? What are the key issues when it comes to battery storage? How can it be optimized? What are the current developments? And how do you see the future of battery storage? Can you elaborate on that?
Good question. Look, one way or another, we do need to figure out how to store the energy so that we're not wasting it. And peak hours versus not so peak hours are the important parts for the battery storage. The good thing on the technology side and the cost side, once again, they are becoming more cheaper. They are able to store more energy without less and less waste. But there's different types of storage. One type of storage that you're probably all familiar with is the one for electric vehicles. Right now, that technology is also improving, which means your car can drive for longer, it can operate for longer, and they are currently figuring out a model with charging and discharging. It's called bidirectional charging, where your car is essentially a battery that carries energy, which can then be used for your house or for something else. So you'll be able to not only charge your vehicle, but also discharge it, potentially sell that energy or give that energy to somebody else. So that's sort of medium to small size batteries. But obviously there's huge batteries for electric stations or manufacturing or real estate buildings that require gigawatts of energy. That's where the likes of Tesla come in. They have an amazing product already, and other companies are trying to copy it or make a better version of that, where they have storage for gigawatts of energy for days.
Right. So basically, electric vehicles we will be able to use electric vehicles as a battery, as a power bank, right? So and then in the peak hours. But how do we suck out this energy from this battery, and how do we store it? How do we put it back and take it out? Or do we have the energy stored somewhere in our energy wallet? And then you basically, for example, once you charge, you sell partly from your wallet, and then, for example, you can keep the battery uncharged and then sell from your wallet, and then you can, for example, buy for the cheaper price.
I think you should join Zeal, by the way. I love this analogy, very, very innovative and very futuristic. Look, the way you described it is a perfect analogy. Your car or your electric car, if you have one, is essentially a power bank that has wheels and is just driving around. And you can either use it for yourself or you can give it to somebody else. The way you, as you mentioned, suck the energy out of it is called bidirectional charging. So charging can go in two ways. Just like you have charged your vehicle, you can discharge it. I mean, it does come with a negative, meaning your car battery will degrade faster, meaning your battery will wear out faster, but you can probably make more uses of that. So you have to be careful with that part as well.
Do you remember back in the days there were not batteries but these little accumulators which you could also put in their socket and charge, and then they were like discharger. So I think if there will be something similar to accumulators, then it will be not a problem of waste, because how many times you can charge your phone? Unlimited amount of times, right? You charge, then the battery is just discharged. For example, when we charge electric vehicles, the battery consists of thousands micro batteries, right? And then it's kind of distribution. So once energy goes into the battery, first 70-80% charge pretty fast, and then to go into this 80 to 100% to finish the full range of the charging process. So and then this energy should find the right battery and get into this. But how do you think the discharging process will work? Because if you think about it, that should be the same way. So you can't really take out all the energy, right?
As a physicist, first of all, your analogy with the phone is also a little bit incorrect. You can't charge and discharge your phone unlimited times. Any technology, anything will wear out one way or another. You might have not been able to get to the end lifetime, but you will notice that your battery does last less and less every year. One, because of the software. The second part is because of the hardware. The first 80%, yes, correct. It's the easiest and fastest way to charge. Is probably you can charge it in 20 minutes or so. And then the final 20 is where packing those electrons is super difficult. Last 20 need to find space, and they need to find and make sure that space is available. But discharging will work in the same way. The first few will struggle to find an exit, but once the flow goes, it will be able to go all the way to zero. You can do that.
Right. And I mean, just talking about the storage, right? So I was just thinking on a fundamental level, all these battery storage require, let's say, lithium. What do you think? Because that is also a finite resource, and at the end you need to extract that and use it. So how about that? Is that not limited? Is that not finite? And if we were to use that to storage all the energy, how are we going to cope up with the demand or the abundance of the energy that we will produce? To store it will require lithium, but that is finite.
That's a tricky one. Yes, lithium iron is definitely a limited resource. We still have a lot of it, but we will run out of it eventually. Right now they're trying to figure out new materials with nanotechnologies and other material kind of to replace that or find a better one. So far, there hasn't been the best outperforming yet, but I'm sure there will be some sort of a revolution in engineering when it comes to that. Hopefully AI can help us with that. But when it comes to storage, the picture of storage is actually quite broad. Right now we talked about this one use case, which is lithium-ion batteries. Right. Storage can be done in many different ways. The other simplest way of storing energy is using water. So water dams. So the simple example is if you have a water dam and you take electricity and pump the water up during the day, but because you have a lot of solar energy, you can use that water to be pumped down again using gravity, which is free, to run the turbines to create electricity again at the night. So that's almost free battery for you, but obviously you need to build the dam to make sure that everything works and build the turbines. You invest a lot of time and energy and money into it at the beginning, but water is another source of storage. The other way of storing energy is heat.
Right.
Heat is another huge source. There are materials right now on the planet Earth that can take solar energy, heat up, and they can maintain themselves hot for 16 to 20 hours. Right. So that energy can be then transferred from heat into electricity. Just you can take electricity into heat, you can turn the heat into electricity. So there's various ways of mechanisms of taking the batteries, storage in different kind of use cases as well.
Got it. I mean, that's interesting. Who do you think is leading this war? And who do you think is probably going for that disruption? I know you are, but who do you think else is doing that? You mentioned about corporations like Amazon, Microsoft, right? They're investing heavily in the renewable energy resources, right? But I want to understand more from an innovation side. Like, for example, who is leading the battery storage optimization technology and other frontiers when it comes to renewable energy?
So you asked the question, who is leading the race? Right. I like to see it as a race that we are going towards some new innovation. Right. One of the leading companies for me, the one that I sort of follow a lot, is Tesla. Right. I think they are one of the most innovative companies in the last 10 years when it comes to renewable energy, electric vehicles, robotics, even AI. What they have done with Tesla in terms of the car is amazing.
Do you mean the car which will be driving you without using any driver anymore?
I think that's incredible. Now, if you put 3 technologies and use cases into this one magical thing, which I believe is going to happen in the next 2-3 years, if you believe Elon Musk's predictions, which sometimes are not accurate, but they come true, which what I like to respect about it. So, one, we have an electric vehicle car, which uses and optimizes energy in a very smart way. Number 2, we have this wireless power transmission. So no longer you will need the cable. Right now we're charging our cars and phones with a cable, which is honestly a very ancient way of doing things. We should have an ability to charge things through wirelessly. And that technology already exists. It's just a question of implementing it. And number 3, the autonomous vehicles. I mean, I'm a big believer in that. I don't like driving. I don't actually drive. I cannot wait for the AI to drive by itself in a much secure, safe, and autonomous way. So if you take that one example of a car that charges, discharges by itself, knows when to charge and buy the energy and maybe sell the energy, do all the smart things for you, park for you,
maybe trade a little bit for you.
And then at the same time, come back and pick you up whenever you need it. I feel like this is the future that I want to personally live in.
I mean, but it's scary as well, right? I mean, you talked about autonomous cars, right? And I have worked in AI space. So I know that it requires a lot of training, when you create these AI algorithms who can predict, who can, let's say, for example, detect the motion direction, right? It sounds scary to some extent because I feel, imagine, everyone is driving autonomous car. So basically they are not driving. And can that create chaos? Because we know for a fact that AI tools like ChatGPT, they also hallucinate sometimes. But when it happens on the live traffic or road, it's very risky.
But I think that they will have some kind of technology, like a navigation system, which prevents them in crashing into like people or other cars.
Statistically speaking, at the moment, the autonomous cars are safer. It's just human perception of them and not having control. We like to have control. Humans like to know that I'm in charge. I have this big ego and I want to control this machine. I don't want to be controlled by the machine is the bigger problem. Right. Autonomous cars have an advantage. They don't get tired. They don't drink. They don't take drugs. They're always sober and they're always ready. And communication between cars to cars can be done wirelessly over the internet, whereas humans to humans don't really talk to each other. And even when they do, it's a very slow communication. I actually have to send you a signal through the voice for you to know that I'm coming or going. Whereas cars can do that automatically.
I think because it's same like the problem with the plane, right? Some people have aerophobia. Why? Because they don't have any control when they're on the plane, and they have no idea how it exactly works. And same with the cars, because we don't have control, because machines taking over the control part, and then it's a bit scary, but actually not, because I'm sure that machines they are more clever than us, to be honest.
They are becoming more and more intelligent than us. I think humans still have a huge role to play in this world. I don't feel so scared about it. I'm more excited about it. And to give you another example, an analogy, sort of 100 years ago or so, back in the days, let's say, when the first lifts were created, the way lifts work, they had a conductor. Nowadays, when you go into the lift, and you guys notice when you come in here, it doesn't even have buttons. You press one button, you go inside the elevator, and it takes you to the floor that you wanted to, and you don't need to like steer anything or press a button. So think of autonomous car is going to become that in a very short period of time. And humans get used to beautiful, simple, and useful technologies very quickly. Think of an Uber. Can you think of not having Uber? Like, just the thought of you having to call for a cab by a phone or go on the street to wait for, that's not a thing anymore. You just press a button and it just comes to you.
But you talked about, let's say we come to a stage where we are able to power these AI algorithms by the energy and the abundance that we have. When we reach a stage, or like, people call it singularity, right? Where the AI algorithms are more intelligent than humans, then they can do a lot of things that human does not have any control over, and then they can make their own decision. But can that be a threat as well? And then this era of energy abundance, will that be a threat to humanity if we go to a bigger question?
I mean, it's a question that everyone's asking in many different forums and many different discussion points right now. Yes, there is a potential for threat. There's a potential disaster that AI can cause onto it. But right now, the biggest disasters on the planet are the humans themselves. Humans are preventing themselves to go to this era of abundance. They're the ones who are fighting over scarce resources, and they're creating more problems. Hopefully, AI can be the enabler, a more reasonable voice of intelligence of how we should maintain our species, take care of nature, and become a lot more smarter when we make simple decisions about our future. And hopefully we can focus on the things that humans are really good at. Humans are really good at creating things. We are super creative when it comes to coming up with new ideas, coming together as a group, and doing something incredibly powerful. The other things that intelligence, pure intelligence requires, we might not need anyway. You don't need to memorize so many things. You don't need to calculate so many things. AI can and will do it way better than any of us, and it's going to happen regardless.